Hello and welcome. Hopefully I'm live. It's telling me I'm live doesn't always mean I'm live, obviously. So I've got to wait 30 seconds for confirmation I'm live and then we can get going. So I'm waiting for you, Mike. My trusty assistant here. Right, let's get that going.
You are live.
I'm live. That's fantastic. So hello and welcome to everybody who is with us live in the chat. The chat is busy already. I will catch up with the chat shortly. But let's get straight on with deep diving data merge in Affinity Publisher. Okay, I need to press one button and we're good to go. Right, we're good to go. If you don't know me, I'm Elaine Giles, a long-time computer trainer, podcast host, radio presenter on a Saturday night, you name it. I work with macOS, iOS, Windows, and all types of applications. Obviously, particularly the Affinity applications, but also Scrivener, Microsoft Office, even Adobe Creative Cloud at times. We are broadcasting this in 1080p, but YouTube doesn't always play ball with us. So make sure that you are watching it in 1080p. There is a cog in the lower right-hand side of your video. And down there, you'll be able to choose your broadcast quality. So make sure you've got the red flash and that it's 1080p. Do put in the chat if you're with us live what it's done to you this week. We actually had someone, was it at 260 the other day? It was unbelievable. So just check. While you're down there, give us a like. It really does make a difference with YouTube. And you can also subscribe. That way, YouTube will give you notifications when we actually go live. So, deep diving data merge. Right. Well, 1.9, all the 1.9 versions of the Affinity applications were released back in February. And this was across the board. This was all of the applications, Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer, Affinity Publisher, on all of the platforms, macOS, Windows and iOS. Obviously, we are still waiting for Publisher on iOS, but that's the only one that's left outstanding. So we're concentrating on the Affinity updates for Publisher, and one of the biggest things that was added to this was the data merge feature. But what exactly is data merge? You may have heard it referred to as mail merge. So if you've used Microsoft Office, it's very similar in concept to mail merge. And what you are doing is you are taking data from a data source, which in our diagram here is the little database icon on the left-hand side. You are also taking an Affinity Designer file, and you are merging the two together. So you have all the beauty of the layout in Affinity Publisher, and you are merging it with standard data coming from somewhere else. That diagram could just as easily represent Microsoft Word and mail merge. But Affinity Publisher takes it a step further, which is instead of having just one data source, you can actually have multiple data sources. So if, for instance, you have a range of courses and you have a database of people who have taken the courses, then you could have multiple data sources like that. So that is a little extra thing that Affinity Publisher can do. Now, when it comes, that's the theory of it. You've got your data, you've got your layout, and you are merging the two together. But what can you use that for? Well, what springs to mind, if you've done it for many years, is mail merge. So you have a standard form letter, and you could at one level have the merge to be just with names and addresses. But on another level, you could actually include extra information there that gets put in the letter, the mail, in strategic places, certain places to fill in data. But it doesn't stop there, particularly not with Affinity Publisher, because you've got the advantage of the complex layouts. So one thing that's really easy to do, I mean seriously easy to do in Affinity Publisher, is labels. I've done labels for years and years. I've done them in all kinds of applications. And those are actually the labels I use. 21 labels per page, 3 columns, 7 rows. There is a brand name on that. Other labels are available. In fact, I think mine are the less expensive version of those. But it's 21 per sheet. And that is incredibly easy to do. There's also other things that you might not instantly think of, but something like certificates, which we have had a request for. Yes, so we are definitely going to look at certificates. You've also got catalogues. because when you use Affinity Publisher, you could be designing an entire catalogue. So think something, if you're in the UK, think something like the Argos catalogue. You could design something like that in Affinity Publisher. But also less well-known things that you might think of doing, badges for conferences, things like that. So anything where you have a standard layout, but you want certain aspects of that layout to change. So obviously with an ID badge, you could have a photograph of the person, you could have their name, you could have the department. If it's a bigger conference, you could have the company that they're from, and you would be able to create all of these with one single merge. So where can the data come from? Well, the first place is probably going to be XLSX spreadsheets. So XLSX is the Excel file format, but it can also be read and written to by other applications, including Numbers and even LibreOffice, which is completely free. Having said that, Numbers is also completely free. So basically a spreadsheet. Now, how would the data get in the spreadsheet? Well, either you've created the spreadsheet to manage the data, particularly, or the data is in some other format. It could be in a back-end system, it could be in a global database for a company. As long as you can get the data from wherever it is to an XLSX compatible spreadsheet, you would be able to use it. But it doesn't stop there. There's also, hang on, wrong way, that's better. There's also text files. So if you have information in a text file, and we mean a plain text file, and that could be generated from an address book, a contact list, a database, could come from any number of locations. It supports not only standard text, but also comma-separated value text, which is CSV, and TSV, which is tab separated. Now, although it says text files, and you think of your spreadsheets as well as being less graphic intensive, you can include images in this, even if it's a text file, because what you do is you put a link to the path. So you put the path name of the resource you want to use. So don't think just because it's text, you can only get text in there. Another format that you may have heard of is JSON files. And a JSON file it's supported by many applications as a standard for data exchange. So for instance, if you've heard of Notion, you can do a JSON export from Notion. If you use Roam, you can do a JSON export from Roam. So JSON is just another file format. Again, it's very plain, descriptive output. It's not a design output. It's a data format for the output. You can also roll your own. Now, I don't mean in terms of a completely separate format, but I mean if you have data and it's in your spreadsheet and the data's there, but there's a little bit too much of it, or you need to change it in some kind of way, you could completely start from scratch. Just make a spreadsheet file, put your headings in, then put the data in. I will show you the data files so you know what you're looking at, but you could make your own completely from scratch. Right, okay, we're about to get going. We will be having a Q&A at the end, so don't wait till the end to put your questions in. If you think of a question as we go along, put it in, and I will pick up with Mike as we go, who will be handling the questions. But do put your questions in straight away. Anything urgent, Mike will let me know about it. So let's get on and have a look at it. So first thing I need to do, let's get Affinity Publisher going. Right, first thing I'm going to show you is the tools that you've actually got. Do I have unsaved files? No, I don't need them. Right, what I'm going to show you here, so I'm going to close down this file dialog box that I've got open because I don't actually need that at the moment. What we're going to look at first is the actual theory of it and the tools that you have available. So first of all, I'm going to get a file just so we've got a file open. I'm going to make this A4 and I'm just going to go very standard. I just want one page. And I want it at the moment, we will go for portrait, just because. So just create a blank file. I can see out of the corner of my eye questions flying in here. I hope you're all having a good time. Right. First thing you need to do. There are multiple tools that you will need to understand and understand how they interact together to create a data merge. So at the moment, this is not data merge enabled in any kind of way. But up here in the document, we have some managers. We've had Section Manager for a while, we've had Font Manager and Resource Manager. And the tool that was added to handle data merge is the Data Merge Manager. So the very first place you need to go is Document and Data Merge Manager. That opens up this dialog box. Now we're going to have to shuffle quite a bit today with this because my screen is reduced in size, ready for broadcast. So I will move this out of the way when we actually need to see what we're doing, but this dialog box will be open all the time that I'm working with this. This is where you hook up the data with your file. So at the moment we have a file and it's not data merge enabled because we haven't attached any data. But down the bottom of the data merge dialog, you can actually add data merge sources. So I will click on there and it comes in here to our data merge folder and I have some names and addresses. So I've clicked on the spreadsheet file, the XLSX, and that's it, it's hooked up. How do we know it's hooked up? Well, over here we have 4 different sections. So I'm going to fold them up and go through them one at a time. The list on the left tells you all the data sources that you have in this file. Just to prove the point that you can actually go in and get some more, let's go and get the bingo data and open that as well. So you can have multiple data sources, which is very different from many, many other applications. Right, across here, you select your data and then what you're going to look at in here appertains to what you have selected on the left-hand side. The first one is the source. So this is telling you the file name that is associated with the names and addresses. It's also allowing you to update that file. Now, it doesn't mean update it in here. What it means is, can you just go back to that data file and recheck it, just in case any more data has been added or deleted or edited in any kind of way. You also have the option in here to show it, and what that does is open up a Finder window or an Explorer window and show you that data in context, just where it is on your file system. You also have the ability to select it, so you go out and you choose a different one to select it, though I don't want to do that, we'll leave that alone. The next thing that you have underneath that is which sheet to use. Now, for that to make any sense, you could have 20 sheets in there. That's why it's a good idea to name the sheets. But I only have one sheet in there and it's called sheet 1. So if we actually open up that Excel file and have a look at it, and I'm going to head across here and see if I can do that to make that chat any bigger, or I won't see a thing. Right. So this is the data that we've got. Now this has been generated from a service that generates data. So it's very, very plain. But you can see in here that we do have one sheet at the bottom. We have in row 1 the data headings, and then all of the other rows have the actual data in. Now the data headings are important, but in here you don't need to leave this looking like this. And what I mean is, if it's easier for you to think, do you know what, title, first name, so yeah, all of these labels up here would be much more striking if I had them a different colour. So if I put like a blue background on it and made that white, now I can see, it's very clear to me that that is labels. Another thing that I do is select the whole thing and I make the row height much bigger. Personally speaking, I change the font as well, but that's probably just me. I like Avenir. It's just a little bit clearer. I also tend to make the rows quite tall, so even as tall as like 34 in that case. What I then do with that is make sure that the data is aligned vertically. Just makes it easier for me to work with. Look at that on line 8, Luke Giles. This was automatically generated data and they picked my surname. Right, that just makes this easier to work with, and it doesn't impact in Affinity in any way at all. So don't think if you format it in here as pink font that's going to come through. It's not. It's just to make this easier to work with in Excel if that's important to you. On the other hand, you might not care at all. You might just think, I'm not even going to look at the data in Excel. Completely up to you. But if you do have multiple sheets that the data is coming from, so you might have region 1, region 2, north, east, south, west, different countries, then it might be an idea to name the sheets. Now, all of these are in the UK. So I might choose to change that to United Kingdom on the basis that down the line, I might need to add more data to it. Right, so I'm going to save that file. So that file has now been edited after we added it to Affinity Publisher. So back in here, we might need to have a look at this because our names and addresses is saying sheet 1 and it's not giving us any other option, but we just changed the name of the sheet. So I'm going to hit update and it's going to go out and find it, look at it, and anything that's changed, including the sheet name, we'll pull through. So that's really important at that stage. Are there any questions that are critical yet, Mike? Hang on. Right.
Tracy has asked one about labels. Do you want to cover it now or later?
From label 3, row 4, just print. I'll look at that question when we come to labels, if that's okay. You should be able to do that, but it'll probably be a bit manual. So the question is Affinity Publisher capable of printing from a particular label? So for example, label 3 on row 4, and maybe just that single label, or starting the print run from that label position on the sheet. Okay, that's two different questions in a way, because it can do an offset, which means I don't want the first 10 rows. So that it could do. The other way, the other bit of the question with label 3 row 4, in a manual way, yes. So we will have a look at that. Remind me at that point, Mike. Okay, so we've updated our data source, which has updated the sheet. So that's what that does. If you're wondering why there's 210 records, well, the labels that I'm going to be using that data for were 21 per page. So it should generate 10 pages. But that's all to do with the data source. You then have the ability to filter the data. So in relation to Tracy's question there, if it was that you've already printed half of them, so 105 have already been done, then you could change the range of records that you select in here. You could actually type that in. But be aware of what that would actually do is not position a label at row 3, column 4. It wouldn't do that. It literally just, I've done the first 105 and now I'm coming on to the next ones. Other thing to think about with that is you'll notice it goes from 1 to 111. 111 is right. It's right because the first one has the headings in. But in terms of the filter's very primitive. It doesn't let me say, how about all the ones from a particular company or something like that? It doesn't do that. This is purely by the numbers. How many have you got and how many do you want to add to this? So it's quite primitive filter at the moment. Hopefully that will be improved. You've then got the ability to preview with a record. Now this won't do anything right now because we haven't actually got any fields where we could see the data. But once we do, if you want to preview what your real data looks like, you put a tick in that box and then you can navigate between the records, which we will have a look at. The last thing you've got in here is the merge pages option, where you're enabling the merge. So all of this will become apparent when we actually start using it, but that is the first step. That is how you hook up the data source. So we now have available for this file our names and addresses and the bingo card data. At that point, it's hooked up. You could close that window. If that's it, you're never going to want to change the data while you're working with this in the next hour or so, you could close the file. I'm just going to take that dialog box off the screen so it's out of the way. And I'm going to bring on something else because at the moment we've got this really plain thing not doing anybody any good at all. Right, how do we get the data to appear? Well, to do that, what I tend to do is just put a text box on there, a blank thing, either an entire text box like that for names and addresses and labels, or you could actually use the artistic text tool. But we'll go in here and we'll put in and say, right, well, we want the name at the top and then maybe a bit of a line and then the address down there. That is not going to do anything at all at the moment. what you need to do, so why I've done that is I've put in basically a mock-up. That's what I want it to look like. To make that pull from the data itself, you need to have the Fields panel open, which is hideously complicated looking. First of all, if you don't see the Fields panel, you need to go into View and Studio and Fields. So I have mine with the table panels. It makes sense to me, the text frame and the table panels. But yours may open separately, it may open anywhere on the screen, but just make sure there is a tick in the box and then go find it. It makes more sense for me to have these panels together. Right, it's hideously complicated, isn't it? So let's fold it all up and go through what we've got in here. There we go. So the first thing you have in the Fields panel is the document information. Now, it's got my name as the author because I'm logged in with me, but it doesn't have any information for the tags, the comments, the title, the subject, or what the revision number is. But this is a placeholder area. You can go in here and you could put in there. So let's say with this, we want labels. You know, this is labels. And we want something else. So conference, it's to do with the conference. So you can put tags in if you want. You can put your comments in. So we'll say that these are, well, these are actually address labels, aren't we? So we'll just put address labels. So all I'm doing is putting in some comments. I can put a title in, put a subject in. So the subject would probably be conference. And then this is going to be revision number 1.0. Now, the reason that you would bother up there is when you come to put a field in, you can actually use the information in here and pull them through using a field. That's the document information. Then you've got all the statistics of the documents. So if you wanted to have on the page who edited it last, when it was created, when it was printed, how many times it's been saved, all of that information is available for you to use within your document in here. You could pull that through in here. So to do that, you would need to go up to text and down to insert, over to fields, and then you have all of these fields available here. Now, time and date, created date, saved date, this is coming from what we have up there. So that is coming from here. That's I'm going to lose that, but we'll bring it back. So let's go back into text and insert fields. You're not limited to what you have in here. You've probably discovered page numbers, maybe frame numbers, but you also have this more option at the bottom. And something will have appeared somewhere, possibly off my screen at that point. Where have you gone? Have you hidden it down here? You can get to more. Trust me on that. You can get to more. But what we're doing in here is, that's how you would get to this information. But as you move down through it, you've also got the section name, page numbers. It's all just metadata to do with the file. The continuation information, the general information. There's a lot of information, isn't there? But then you come to the data merge and you've got 3 entries in here already. So we have a data merge there where it says source, the index, the unfiltered. That's a blank one, but we've added 2 data merges of our own. So first of all, we have the XLSX names and addresses. And what we see underneath that disclosure triangle in here are the fields that we had in Excel. So to make absolutely certain of that, let's go back to Excel, which doesn't remember its previous stuff, but there it is. Let's open that up. It's these. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we had 9 fields available. And that what you see in there, so for instance, postcode. Postcode is generally 2 words. If you're going to put a capital in the middle of it. This, if I rename it in there, that will come through to our data with the space in it. But I would need to save it. I would need to come out of Excel and I would need to go back over here. So this is the field name that we're looking at. That postcode's there. If we do that now, it's that one there. I would need to go back into the data source, which is the Excel file. I would need to go to source and I would need to update it. And the second that I update that, you see we get the space over here. So you've got to, if you do make any data changes, go back and do that. Sometimes it actually does warn you and say the data has changed. But what I would do is make it good practice. Every time I go into a file that is a data merge file, I would open up the data merge panel, and I would update. And that way I'm certain that I've got exactly what I need. But we added a second data merge, didn't we? We added the bingo card data, which is underneath. Now this data doesn't look anything like his neat and tidy. It's just item, item, item. We actually use this data when we looked at tables. But these things don't need to have decent names on them because they are just random items. But they are available for use and they are categorised according to where they're coming from. So if I particularly wanted item 24 to be added to every label, I could do that and have the names and addresses with it, but they're coming from two totally different data sources. So some are neat and tidy, some less so, don't need to be. And when it comes to actually adding the stuff, it couldn't be easier. I've done this mock-up that I've got. Now maybe I've done that to check against a design. Trust me, we're going to get with better designs than just a blank page. So I want to check that everything's in the right place before I start working. And then all I need to do is to select the name, which is just plain text at this point, go over to here, and then it gets interesting. Which name do you want? Because if it's an address label, we're going to want the person's title, first name and surname. So I would start by adding the title. So I'm just going to click title. And what happens in here is it puts in the word title. That is the label, this label here. It puts it in angle brackets and that indicates it's a field. Right, the next thing I'm going to need is first name. And I'm going to do this wrong. If you're with me live, write in the chat what's wrong with this. Where's it all going to fall apart? But the next thing I would want is the first name, so I'll put that in. And then I would want the surname or the last name. Right, why is that wrong? So have a contemplation with that while we go to add the address. Now I just put the word address, just one word. But if you look at the data, the address is actually made up of one field called address, one called city, the postcode and the country. So while I've added one word, and I can change that for address, it would make a lot more sense to put a carriage return in, or even shift return, so there's no huge gap. Renee's ahead of us live, which is up here. You will need to put spaces, because unless the data has spaces, which it shouldn't have, that would be bad form. If the data had the space in it, I mean, if that's how the data comes and you choose to work with it, then fine. But if the data has spaces in it, it's harder for you to control it at this end. So because there's no spaces in the data, that's good practice. It means here I can make changes to that. Whereas if the spaces come in with it and they don't match, that would be a problem. So we've got our first line of the address. I'm then going to put the city in. And then I'm going to the next line, put the postcode in, just double click each one, and we'll then put the country in. Obviously, if this was for a badge or something, we might want the occupation and we might want the company. But for just this, that is how you wire it up in terms of you've linked to the data source, the names and addresses XLSX file. How do you manage it? Mike's an Excel expert, and I fall over XLSX every time. It's the X on the end that does it. But the Excel file. Okay, that you've hooked that up first. So step one was hooking it up in the data merge panel. That's step one. Step two, go to the fields and then double click to put each of those wherever you want them. Oh, now that's a question from Renee. Can you input the fields by just typing them in instead of clicking them in from the studio? Well, if you noticed when I made a selection here, when I wanted to say to you, right, that there is the title. If I click there, you would think that I could go into it and select the word title. But no, these are special fields. So double clicking them, you could actually type in there if you wanted. So let's go in there and we'll actually put it in title like that. I don't think that would merge it, because in here, it's just text. I can select that. If I try doing that in here, I can't. It selects the whole thing. So it's not too arduous to double click. Honestly, it's not. Right. So anything that you want in here, so as Tracy's pointed out, if you do want any punctuation like this, then you need to put that in here. Don't get confused and think, oh, that needs to come from the source data, because again, you're going to have problems with it if you do that. So try and make sure that the source data is as clean as possible. Avoiding spaces, avoiding punctuation, avoiding anything that you would want to put in at the Affinity Publisher end to style it. So very, very plain data is always best. Right, that's a theoretical demonstration, because at the moment, if we look at that entire page, that's not actually a label, is it? But we will come on and look at that. The reason that I've taken this time to do this is, if you're quite happy now to run with that, then you can finish watching now. But what I'm going to move on to is more nuanced stuff. But that's the basics. That's it. You could then merge that if you wanted to. Now, I did say to you over here, so let's make that a little bit bigger so we can see it, that there was an option in here in your data for a preview. And I said I couldn't preview it because we didn't actually have any data. But now we've got the data. So I could put a tick in preview with record, and it gives me a preview. And I can go through each record. So there's 200 and odd records, but I can go through them all and preview that if I wanted to. So that is what that option there is for. And now we've got real fields in the document. It's all hooked up, and now the preview works. So just proving the point that the preview does actually work. Now, at that point, I'm going to start again completely from scratch, but this time we're going to do some snazzier layouts than that. But we're starting with a very simple one. So I will close that, don't need to save it, and go back in and make a new file. This time I do want, and again I'm going to have to juggle these panels on and off the screen. I do want A4 because I wanted, these are going to be printed out. But it needs to be landscape. I'm not going to make any other changes to that. So I'm only working with the layout that I've got at the top. I'm going to prefer embedded graphics. I only need the one page. I will put a default master in and just click create. So in essence, I've got a very plain A4 page. Right, okay. I have some graphics that I'm going to show you. So I want to make a certificate, but I've actually been able to download a range of certificates. One of them is a very traditional one. So I'm going to drag and drop on some artwork. And this is an EPS file, which is going to sit on there. I will move that up fractionally, so now it completely covers the page. This was downloaded from Envato Elements as a demonstration. You could make this in Designer, you could make it in Publisher, you could bring in an image background that you've got from somewhere else, maybe you have a corporate certificate. Wherever it comes from, get it on the page like that. Now, obviously here I've got somebody's name in the middle, and this is artwork. So I'm going to show you how you would use the artwork if it's come from somewhere else and it's a sample like this in terms of you purchased a template. So I don't need this particular person's name on it. And this got really complicated as I went into it trying to edit it. So I was trying to drill down into it, and you can see I finally got the A selected. Right, luckily here, the name, so all of that is the name and the colon. I don't think we need the name because this says awarded to start with, so we don't need all of that. And we'll get rid of Mark Barker. And you've got a couple of options. You can just toggle them off if you want, or you can actually delete them. I'm going to delete them. We don't need that. So there's all of these curves in here, in this layer, inside the EPS, that we're working with there. Right, but all we need to do is put a placeholder here for our data. Or is it? I think we might be getting ahead of ourselves. There's something we've not done yet before we get that far. But I am going to save this because we don't want this to crash mid-demo, do we? So let's do in here. So it's opened that up as an embed, but this is the file we're actually working with. So I'm going to save that. We will call that certificate. And we'll put it Should we put it on the desktop? Yes, let's put it on the desktop. Let's be bad and put it on the desktop. Right, so I want to hook that up, do I? First of all, we need to go and get the data, remember? Right. Oh, Tracy's excited. You can open an EPS directly in Publisher. You can, Tracy, and when you double click it, bearing in mind I told it to be an embedded file. So when you're in here, if you wanted to change something in it, when you double click it, it opens up as an embedded file and you can then edit it. So you've got access to everything in here to edit it. You've also, because it's Affinity Publisher, got the option to use Studio Link to move to the design persona and do a whole lot more with it. If you've made changes like I did, where I took the name away, you then save the embedded file and then you can close that embedded file down and it takes you back to your Publisher document. Okay, so we were ready. We were getting carried away with ourselves. I'll put the name in the middle. I'll put the name in the middle. Before we get that far, no data. We need to go and get the data. So let's go get the data, which is in the data, names and addresses, and open. And that opens up our file. It's remembered the fact that, obviously, because it's just read it in, that the sheets is called United Kingdom, etc. Everything in there is fine. That's all you need to do to hook the data up. The next thing, let's bring on our fields so we can see that. And we have our data merged names and addresses, and we have all of the fields available. Right, now we're ready to get going. So I will add on here some text. Now, I always do it where I think, right, okay, that's going to be the name of the person. So what do I actually want that to look like? And for a start, much bigger than that. So definitely bigger. And possibly some kind of different font in this circumstance. And this is why I'd have a look at it. I've got a lot of space there. So I don't really have to worry about that in terms of making it too big that it goes off the end. But you might want to check the data. But Arial's a bit plain for that, isn't it? So I would probably have a look through here. Angry Birds might work well, but probably not in a business situation. So maybe something like Arial Black, or maybe something that's, I think I used, is that Fino? So the name looked not exactly handwritten, but it had some kind of artistic thing to it. So I'll make that a little bit smaller. Now at this point, remember, I've just typed name in. What you need to consider is, do you think the people would want their title in it or not? And it might look a bit strange, you know, Miss Elaine Giles. But it depends, and this is a purely practical thing, if it's average people, Mr., Miss, Mrs., Ms., then it might look a bit odd. But if it's been awarded to Professor Smith or Dr. Smith, then they might really want their title. So that's just a practical thing. I think for our purposes here, we'll leave it without the title. But do think about who it's going to. But we definitely need the first name. So I'm going to click in there and get the first name, move across. Don't forget the space and then the surname. Right, that is mighty large. Might need that a bit smaller. How can we actually tell? Well, how we can actually tell is getting rid of the Files panel and bringing our other panel on, trying to get it out of the way enough that we can preview with a record. How does that look? And then go through and just have a look at them. So unless we've got a really, really, really long name, that doesn't look bad. However, the P of Pope here, the descender, is going into the text. So what do we do about that? And probably the best thing to do is make the text a little bit smaller. You could move this text, this lorem ipsum, down because you do have the space. The problem doing that, me doing that right now, is that this is an EPS and it's not editable text. In your case, it probably would be. But what I will do is make that a bit smaller, just to get any of the descenders out of the way of the text that's already there. And that's why you preview. For situations like that, because it looks okay like that, but then when you get some with a descender, you get a problem with it. So I'm whipping through here. That does look like it could do with being a bit bigger, couldn't it? It's not previewing properly. Now, that is something that I've noticed. The first time I demonstrated this was 24 hours after release, which on reflection wasn't the best idea I ever had, because there were a lot of issues with it. But it seems to sort itself out on the merge. So if you have a name that is longer than that and it's truncated, it does seem to sort itself out, but we'll find out, won't we? But that's why you may use the preview for things like the descenders. But we've previewed enough. Right, let's take the preview away. We're now quite happy with that. And now we need to do the merge. So that's the bit we've not done so far. We've hooked up the fields, we've previewed it. Merging is the second thing. Now the file that you're working on at the moment is your master file. It's the pre-merge file or the master file. When you do what you do to generate the merge, this file is left untouched. This file does not change. It generates a new file. So how you do that? You're going to need your data merge panel, and we're not interested in anything in here at the moment. It's this generate button at the bottom. That will take everything that's in this file and generate a new file. The difference in the new file will be, instead of there being a single page like we have here, there will be multiple pages, and each one will be merged from the data. So it's predictable how many pages. One page per record in your source data. So I'll hit generate. It won't take this one that long, and we'll get that out of the way. And what we now have here, we'll look at just these three for a start. Abby Smart is quite short, and that's fine. We have the whole name. But if you look at the second one, which is Melissa Hutchinson, we've still got the whole name, even though the preview didn't work. So let's carry on down. So as I say, sometimes you do need to actually run it, because as you go through this, it is actually correct when it finally merges. So I don't know who, I have no idea which the longest name is. But there'll be a long name in there, maybe Melissa Dickinson, something like that. But they all work perfectly. Now this is a standard Affinity Publisher file. It's the result of a merge though. So if you wanted to make any changes, if you came in here and you thought, I think I want the name to be a different colour, you could do that in here, but it's not the best place to do it. The best place to do it would be back in your pre-merge file. This is the output. This is the file you would print or send to PDF or whatever you want to do with it. This is that file. At the top you can see it's untitled, not even saved yet, but the certificate is still there. So you can go back to it, you can change the size of the font, you can change the font, change the colour, make all the changes you like, and then just generate a new output file. So this file here is the output file. So I'll save that as output, just so we can see we have the certificate file and we have the output file. Now, what if, one thing I want to show you in here is this output file. If we look at the certificate file and we look at our data panel, data merge, you can see there's our data. But when we are using the output file, there's no data. It's an output file and it has no link to the data. It has no idea that all of these pages were generated from a data merge. It's the output file. So if there is a fundamental change, if this is the point you realise you've spelt certificate wrong, then just bin this file and start again. So in my circumstance, that certificate looks fine, doesn't it? But bit old-fashioned. Could do with maybe a newer one. Something that looks a little bit more modern than that. Right, what I can do with that, I'm going to close that file down completely. So that was our output. I'm going to go back to our certificate file here, because I don't know about you, but clients always do that with me. Yeah, I want this really old style certificate thing. And then you show them and they say, that's a bit old-fashioned, isn't it? And you think, yep, I thought that. So handily, I have a whole range of alternatives. So I'm going to bring them on. I have this one and I have that in different colours. So I have it in blue and I have it in green, but I quite like the top one, which is that one. So what I'm going to do with that, one thing I can do with this, just in case they change their mind again, that's clients, is just turn that off. And we have here our merge data. So that's there, but that was just image and it was a background. So what I'm going to do is just drag and drop another EPS onto here. And there is our new one. Now that one's going to need a little bit of playing around with, isn't it? But I think it'll be all right if we just stretch it a bit. Now again, this is an EPS, it's a graphic, and it's got the name in it that we need to get rid of, but it's also not 2016, so we need to change that as well. And possibly put some signatures on here as well. But I'm not going to worry about little nuances like that, but we will get rid of the text. So again, it's an embedded document, so I'm going to double click on it, which opens up the embedded document in a separate window, and we have one layer and everything is on one layer. Joy of joys. So I've got to go and find it. So I can see there by clicking on one, there's 2016. So let's get rid of that for a start. Don't need that at all. And down here, it looks like that is here, doesn't it? Name, and we have Mark Barker handily in red. So we can completely get rid of it. And now we're ready to put our text on there. Oh, Prodley. Good point. Good point, Peter. I didn't create this. Well, because that isn't even text, the best thing I could probably do with that is delete the whole lot and put some text in, isn't it? Luckily, that wasn't my misspelling. Oh, I do things like that, but not this time. Right, what did that actually say? This is to proudly search. Well, we don't need anything like that, really, do we? Let's put some text of our own on, all right? And put awarded to. Right, but that could do with being a little bit more advanced than that. Something that looks, awarded to, that looks quite nice, doesn't it? Although I am making this modern one look quite old-fashioned by using that font, but I'm going to go with it anyway. I'm going to go with it. Right, let's move that. Come on, you can do it. There we go. How does that look? Is that better? Well, I might not have improved that, but you know what? We're going to go with it anyway. If you do want to lose something like the lorem ipsum, this is the place to do it. So in there, I might even be able to draw around the whole thing, right, and get rid of it that way. But I'm going to leave it there. It doesn't matter. It's the principle of the thing here. Remember that this is our embedded file, so you do need to save this file. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to close that one down, and when we go back in here, we have our awarded to, but now as you see, when I click it and move it, I'm moving the entire thing. So actually, once it's seated, what I would probably do with it is lock that. Now I'm going to have a drink. Good grief. I shouldn't have had that big fry up this morning, Mike, which was most delicious. Okay, so we've got our file. Now it's not moving, but our art text, which is the name of the recipient, is underneath. So I'm going to bring that to the front. If you wondered how I did that, it's Command and right square bracket, which moves things up and down. There's left bracket, right bracket. So it changes the stacking order. Okay, we have our name. Let's try and get our name in a good place. It might need to be smaller this time, just being aware of the space that we actually have, and starting it at that end. Now, at this point, although we've completely changed the certificate, you don't need to make any changes. I didn't need to change anything in this dialogue, which is the data merge, at all. That was already done, even created. And our fields panel over here didn't need to do anything with that either, because that had already been done. So once you have merged a document like I have here, or I have hooked it up ready to create an output file, you can carry on editing. And if you decide you don't like that one and you want the green one, or you want to change something in there, then you can do. One thing that's bugging me is that thing there. Oh, that is not good, is it? When I changed it fractionally, it looks like that's the top. That's that bit. Is that all of that? Where's the round bit? There we go. I'm going to group those. It looks like I squashed it. So it might need to change fractionally like that. But you can change any element of this like that to the nth degree. Save it, come out of there. We're back into our file and away we go. So to see the data, we go back to the data merge and we go to the preview and we preview. And we're previewing to check that everything is fitting on the line. Are our descenders okay? And they are. We could even possibly push that down a little bit, but there you go. It looks like that's fine. I would say there's a possibility, going through these names, we could actually make that a bit bigger. So if we do that, making sure our descenders are still okay, and carry on making sure that they are all right, I think we're not too bad there. Even the G is not touching that text. So that looks okay to me. Right, so that's previewing it. So I've previewed a few. The next thing to do is just generate it. Just hit generate, wait for it to create it, and now we've got a completely different certificate. But the beauty of this is you could change this again if you wanted. You could change just the colour of a bit or whatever. You could go back to your file here and they say, this modern one, yeah, MD doesn't like it. Can we have the other one back? Fine. And all you need to do is move that back into position. Is there something that is better than the way that we've done it? And there could well be. Ooh, this is going to be jeopardous because I haven't actually done this, but I have contemplated it. Right, we have put a graphic on the background, then we've done a data merge hook up to the data, then we've inserted some fields, and then we've merged it. What would be better in our output file? So let's have a look at the output file. Have a look at what we've got there. This is the output file. Now, I don't know about you, but how many times have you heard somebody say, this PDF file, can I edit it in Word? Now, up to a certain point, you can. What if all you have is this file and you need to edit it? You do not have the pre-merge file. You don't have the master file. You've only got this file. Then where did we go wrong? There is potentially a better way to do this, and even better than the way we've already done it. Ooh, Tracy's saying artboards would be great. I would like you to learn from what you've done. No, come on. How could we do it even better than that? That would make this file easier to edit, just in case we ever needed to edit just this file. And it was something that we did back in the other file. So you guys tell me, how could we make this file that we produce from the data merge easier to create? Easier, well, not actually easier to create, but easier to edit once we've done it. Because what would be difficult to edit here would be maybe the style of the text. Unless we created a style back in our pre-merge file. So if in here, instead of just saying, yeah, that was the text, if we made a text style for it, that text style would ripple through and we would be able to edit it. So this is where the data merge aspect of Affinity Publisher doesn't live in isolation from all of the other features that you may well already know about. You need to hook the features together to get the best output. So one issue is styles. Maybe I should have created a style for that. Well, that's simple enough. If I just add a paragraph style there and say that that is the recipient, no, as you were, recipient style. Okay, it's not based on anything else. That's the style. So I've now created the style for the text, but there's one more thing that's actually quite a huge thing. Tracy says create a full data file. No, it's not in terms of the data file. This is in terms of practicalities within Affinity Publisher. So this background that we've got here, the actual certificate that we want the name to appear over, if we look at our output file, at this point that looks fine, and you might not twig. But if we look at our output file, how many copies of this have we got? Well, one for every page. So this is actually sat on every page. It's actually movable and it's sat on every page. Why is it not on the master? Oh, master. If we did that, so let's take this away. Let's actually cut that from there completely and go to the master page. In fact, our masters here are, we've got left and right masters, which we don't actually need either. But let's not worry about that. I put that in there, and obviously because we do have facing pages, I'm going to need to put another one over there. You would not need to do that if you didn't have facing pages. Then what happens down here is, well, it's come through there anyway. It's not lined up properly. What have I done with it there? Good grief, that's better. Right, let's have a look at that. Right, now it's on the master and not on here. That solves a couple of problems. One, if I try moving it, I can't move it because it's not on here, it's on the master. But the other benefit is this. So I'm going to get rid of this file that we've got down there. So don't save that. We're now back to the original old style certificate. But if we go to our layers in here, we do have this one, which was the other one that we had. I'm going to take that as well. I'm going to cut that off there. Oh, did that just cut? There we go. That's fine. And go up here. And up there, I'm going to put that on there. I do believe that is just about right. Need to stretch it out fractionally to fit that way. And take a copy of that and put that over there. Is that the right way to do it? Yes and no. Yes and no. You could certainly toggle these off because you've got embedded documents in here. So you could do that. This is a good way to work. All right. We will leave that. Is that over the edge of there? No, it's right. It's right. Okay. So that's the one that we want when we output to our file. So back in here, we've got everything that we need, although there's something not quite right there, but we're not going to worry about it. It's the principle of the matter here. So now the background of the certificate is not on each page, which has the benefit when we generate it. So this is the pre-merge file. This is the merged file. It's now on the background. I could save the master as master B, Renee, but it's actually faster not to in this circumstance. Because what I could do in here is go into there, grab the two of these and just toggle them off. That automatically gets updated in all of the other pages. If it was a separate master, I would have to change the master that applied to it. Either way is fine, but this is faster. So if they come and say, no, that's not right, don't like that at all, then problem solved. You just toggle them on and off in here. Okay, so let's close that down. Don't need to save that. That was our certificate. That one, believe it or not, is as easy as it gets. It gets more complicated from here. And this is in terms of layouts that you've got and in terms of the actual merge, because all we've merged so far is the two names. It's as simple as that. I will save that file and get rid of it. So what have you just done? Wrong thing entirely. Right, let's get rid of it. Okay, back to where I was, which means I do need to... I've closed the wrong page over here. Oh, for crying out loud. Right, let myself get a new page. Right, now I've got a new page. Okay. So this time, we are going in. We've done the first one. Let's have a look at the labels one because it's quite easy. It's similar in concept, but we do need to use something else to actually do it. So in Affinity Publisher, we need to create our new file. So Command and N. This time I do want it to be portrait. So I need to make sure that it's portrait. I will prefer embedded, but what I won't do is, where are we? Do want the default master, just in case, but I don't want the facing pages. That way it'll simplify things entirely. And I'm going to create that. Now, first of all, you want to know what that will look like. But this time, instead of having one record per page, this time what we need to do is have multiple records per page, which is a different thing entirely. Okay? You have a couple of options depending on what you want to do. Now, you have a whole new tool. So we looked at the data merge panel, we looked at the fields panel, and now we're looking at the data merge layout tool. With this tool, I'm going to drag and drop across the entire page. And it drops into view there what looks like a table, only it's not actually a table. It's a data merge layout. Right, the difference between that and a table. Well, first of all, I'm going to make this a bit smaller. This is the data merge layout tool across the bottom, but you also have a table tool like that. And they do look similar enough, but also quite different. So this enables you to predict how many rows and columns you want. So if I set that down to 2, just like the other one, and I set the number of columns down to 2, then they would look fairly similar, wouldn't they? Come on, table, come back to me. Where have you gone? Come on, let's do it as 2 and 2. Like that, and then make that bigger. Okay? They do look fairly similar. You can... Oh dear, we've crashed it. Oh no! Oh, gotta love a live demo. I did say it needed a bit of an update, didn't I? Right, let's have a look. As we were, so I need a new file. So let's start off again. A4. Did not want facing pages, so get rid of the facing pages, only want the one, that'll be fine. Right, let's try that again. I'll show you the table first. Right, well, I will show you the table. So there is a table. Don't crush this time. Right, there's a table. That's a table. And, you know, when you click away from it, you might think, oh, well, it's very, very similar to what you've got with this data merge layout thing. They look virtually identical, but they're not the same at all. So one has blue edges, one has black by default. Obviously, if you'd made your borders blue, they would be very difficult to tell apart. Apart from the fact that when you double click a table, it has the rows and columns, the headings for them. And when, so I'm going to get the tool there, when you double click that, it doesn't. So these are two very different things, despite the fact that they do look fairly similar. Right, I thought I'd set this document up correctly, but it doesn't look like I have, so I'm going to get rid of that and get a new one, because this one needed to be portrait, which I thought I'd made it portrait, but it didn't come through portrait. That's better. Okay, so I want labels on this page, and this is why I need this data merge layout tool, because I need to tell it in here how many I need. And I know that I'm going to need 3 across and 7. I also know, which you will know from the packet of labels that you've got, it'll have the size of the labels on it. So with this data merge grid in front of us here, you can, in the contextual menu bar at the top, you could actually set that correctly. So the cell width is 44.4, and the height I think was 70. That rings a bell. Great. And then I can stretch it out, can't I? And then I'll have what I want. Yeah, not quite. So in this circumstance, don't bother if it's labels. Fiddling with typing in numbers and stuff, forget all of that. Right, what we need to do here is get this so it's filling the page. But while you can get A4 sheets of 4 labels, mine have 21 labels. And what you do to do that is you have your rows and your columns here. So in there, those two options there, the rows and columns, number of rows, 7. So just set them to 7. Number of columns, 3. That's it, you're done. So while Paul is saying, are there margin presets for the Avery labels? No, not in this circumstance. 1, you could make your own, but 2, you don't actually need them. You can change whether you have a gutter on it, which is if I put 5 mil, right? If your Avery labels have a gap of 5 millimeters, you can specify that. I don't think mine do. I think mine are a full sheet. But if you do, you can specify it. So on the back of the label packet that you've got, there should be like a flat plan of the labels. It will tell you the size of the labels, the size of the gutter, and the size of the margins. And from that, you could set that up in here. But actually, you don't really need to. So let me show you why you don't really need to, and I don't need to put any kind of gutter on it. Because what we've got here, I want to set up what this actually looks like, one label. Now, there's 2 ways to do this. What you could do is get that out of the way and just think, what do I want this to look like? And I'm actually going to use a table for the layout. That's one option that I've got. I don't need anything like that number of columns, or I could just do this with text. So it doesn't matter whether you do this with a table or whether you do it with text. Should we do it with text? Let's do it with text. Right, but I do need here, in fact, I'll do it as a text block. That'll be easier still. Right, there's our text block. Right, we need our name. So again, we had the name at the top. Then we're going to need the address. You don't tend to get it where there's much of a gap. So there's our address 1 and our address 2 and our address 3. Can't remember how many we had. Was there 3, 4 maybe? Oh yes, United Kingdom. So we had country as well, didn't we? So let's put those in as well. In essence, that's what I want. So that's like a flat plan for me. That's what I want. The reason that I've done it like that is, and just to show you some magic. So let's take that out of the way. And let's bring our grid back and put it in place. Bearing in mind, not a table. So as I drag this text block in, what I can do is eyeball putting it in the middle, like that. That's kind of cool. Right, I'm going to cut that and click on there and then paste. I'm pasting it into the first cell, the first holding area, but look what happened with the rest of it. And that's why you don't really need to think about things like the gutter, the gap, because if that's not quite right, move it down a bit. And as you move it down, so we don't need it to even be that big, as you move it down in the first one, it moves it in all of the others. So just aim for the middle. But if you want to create a template, you absolutely could. Right, so that's fine as far as it goes. But remember, that's just a mock-up. We do not have a data source yet. So let's go and get the address labels again. Which were, where did they disappear to? Are they over there? There's our certificates. They are in there. So that has hooked up the data to it, which means you can get rid of that, go across to the other side and bring on your fields panel. And in your fields panel, you have all of your data. So at this point, we will zoom in so you can see what's going on. All you need to do is to select the first one and put in the title. Space, first name, space, surname. Now that's wrapped around already. We've probably got that text to be too big. We will sort that out. There's the first line of the address. There is the second. There is the third. And there is the country at the bottom. Okay, and that probably is going to be too big. Labels I tend to work at certainly no more than 10. Right, but we have that option, don't we? Now we can get rid of the fields panel. Oh, it's like the weather clock here, isn't it? Bringing things on one at a time. Right, what we can now do is turn the preview on. And this time, while we're previewing, there we go. All right, let's go across there. How's that look? Not bad at all. Not bad at all. Right, they fit. In fact, we could possibly make them a bit bigger. So I would check that. That's how I would check it. Okay, and up here, let's make that 11. I think we definitely get away with 11. Okay, and there's our data. So let's zoom out to the page. If you're printing to labels, pro tip, print it out on a piece of paper first. Put the piece of paper over the top of the labels and hold it up to the light, and you'll see how it lines up. And if it doesn't line up too well, then go back to the drawing board in here. Oh, I can't tell you the number of times it's been out by a millimetre on the first one, which means the second one's out by 2 and the third by 3, and before you know it, everything's completely wrong. But so labels, bane of my life, but it does work. It does work. So we have there our pre-merged file. This is the master file. This is really good for Christmas things or birthdays or special offers as well, because you're not limited in terms of what you could do in here. You could add an extra little logo or something to it. So when I do my Christmas labels, they all get like little Christmas things on them. I know I've got more time than is good for me, clearly. Right, but this is your pre-merge file. So the first thing we need to do with it at this stage is save it. So this will be our labels. I'll put that on the desktop as well. Then you need to do the actual merge. And remember, that happens in the data merge panel. So I don't need to preview anymore, but I do need to generate that. Go away and actually create it. And now what I've got is a full set of labels. So the preview was previewing it with one person's record, but when you actually merge it, you get everybody's record. Technically speaking, if my maths has been correct, and there's 21 per page, I should have 10 pages, which I do. Okay, that's why there were 210 records. And these are your actual records. And then all you need to do is to print that. But don't forget, again, if I'm now at this point and thinking, I could do with the United Kingdom being bigger, then think about styles at the master file level. And when you do that, you can then change things in here using the styles. So it's all pulling together all of the features that we've looked at before. Okay, that's the labels. Right, what did I have next? Oh, a catalogue, which is kind of a hybrid thing. So there's the labels. Let's save the labels. Labels merged. There we go. Our labels. Okay, there is like a hybrid between the two then. So this is for labels. Now the principle is identical. The principle is completely identical. In fact, all of these merges, you know, the technology that you're using, the technique you're using, the process, the workflow, it's the same. Make sure you've attached to the data. Make sure you've got your layout. Add the fields, merge the data. Simple as that. It's always the same. But in your head as you're creating it, it might be like, well, hang on, that one's slightly different. That one is slightly different. So we will go on and we will look at catalogue one that I did in the tables one. So let's get rid of that and get rid of that. So yeah, we will save that. Okay, let's start another one. So new file. Now this time I want A4 and I do want it portrait. I do want it embedded. I do want one page to start with because the whole thing is going to be merged. Do I want facing pages? Now this depends on the type of output, and in this circumstance, yeah, I actually do. And create. That gives me my holding page there. Right, what I'm going to do with this one is something slightly different, but the process is identical. Go and find the data. So the first thing I'm going to do, go get the data, which is in my data, and I put it in there. MapBytes shows data. So let's open that. Right, it's coming from a sheet called data, and I've got a sheet called variables. So this time I've got two sheets in there and I could choose a different sheet. Obviously I need the data, not the variables. The variables are how I generated the data. I will show you the data because this time the data started off a little bit more formatted than the last one did. So what data we've got is all of the MapBytes shows. So you have seen this data before if you were with me when we looked at tables, but we didn't discuss it in any way, shape or form because it wasn't relevant. But what we've got here is a list of MapBytes shows. In column A, we have the show and the number. The second column has the show title, and you'll notice again I've formatted it, but this time because it's MapBytes, it's formatted as orange. I've got the duration of the show and I've got the release date for each show. This one, however, has graphics with it. Now, if you look here, what you're putting in the show art is not the show art, because the merge aspect of it is it's going to merge text. But to accommodate graphics, what you need to put in the column is actually the location of the graphics. So if you look at it, volume, scratch, show art, and then a number. Let's have a look at that, shall we? I am in the fortunate position to have a scratch disk, which is a 1 terabyte drive. Good grief, I need to get rid of some of the rubbish off there, seeing as though there's only 39 gig left. But in here, I have this folder of show art, and in there is the show art. It actually goes up to 136 and 137, although the records only go up to 135. But all of these are the show art for the show. So that's how it handles graphics. So let's get back over there. And the other thing that I've got here is a contextual intro, which is a lot of text. But I am in the process of going through them, so I only have that for a few records. But that is the data that we're actually working with. The variables part of it, I'm wondering why I had variables. Why did I have variables? Oh, I did. I was generating the image paths. So I had some variables to pull the image paths through. So in here, it's saying go to the variables sheet, get the value of B1 and then add show art, and then get the number, which is column A, take some bits off it and add some bits on, and that way I don't have to type all of that in. So it's calculated. It also means if I move the graphics, it's easy to change where they are. I go into the variables and I say, right, it's in there. That's the image path. You can also see I've got a load of other things going on here. But if I wanted to change that, so let's say I changed it from show art to images. When I go back to my data source, that has updated. So the volume is, you still need volumes at the beginning. The actual disk is the same, but now instead of looking in the show arts folder, it's looking in images. So this is a bit advanced in terms of I'm allowing myself, I'm making it very flexible at the point that I'm working with the data to make sure that I can change the data quickly, that I don't need to go back to it and think, oh dear. And then I've got to manually all update it. So it would be very quick for me to just go back to that and say, actually, it's not images, it is show art. Let me get in there and select it and put show art in. And as soon as I go back to the data, that is updated. So try and think of the flexibility that's needed here at 2 points. The first point is with your data. And the second point is at the very end of the process when you're working with the output file. Make sure that you use styles. Make sure that you do things right, like how many masters do you need? Do you need 2 masters or 1 master? It's actually quicker in this circumstance to just toggle stuff on and off. But you could have multiple masters if you want. So think it through before you actually start doing it, and then it'll be really quick and easy when you do it. So that's the data that we're working with. I will close Excel down. We have done the hookup. We've got the data from there. It's coming from the data. We just need to work magic at this end. And how I did this the first time that I did it was I created one of these. And I just laid that out in a way that I thought it looked best. So we're using the data merge layout tool. But what I'm going to do this time, I'm going to put some text into it. So about here, I probably want the title or the reference. Do you want the show number? Show number, probably. So I will put in there, we'll keep it like that, show number. Then underneath that, I probably want the title of the show. So I'll put something else in there for the title of the show. Title. But I want the title to be bigger than the show number. So let's put the title in there. And we do want that to wrap round. So we might have to fiddle with this yet, but we will get it right. So what else did we have in our data? We had the duration. So let's put that down there and put duration in there. And we had the release date. So we'll put that in there too. Like that. Release date. Let's just put date. It's easier. Right. Sometimes in here, I would leave these alone, and other times I would go in and delete them. So we've got in there, and they're not even lined up, are they? Good grief. Let's put the title there. Put the duration and that down there. And I would maybe put some extra information in, but that will do for our mail merge. That will do for now. Apart from, there's an item missing, which is I want a graphic. So I have the ability to put a placeholder in there. Now, what size should the placeholder be? Well, I know that my graphic is 16:9 in ratio. So the easiest thing to do is say, okay, 16 by 9. So at that point, that's far too big, but I know that the ratio is correct, that you can see it's far too big. But then I can link the two together, which means when I go in there and shrink that down, it shrinks down and it's still 16:9. And all I need to do is put it in a good place, which is about there. So how are we doing with that? Think I could probably move this up a little bit. Put the show number underneath there. Might even want that to be a bit wider. So I'm holding the shift key down so it matches up over there. That looks about right. But remember, this is only a mock-up. Now I need to go through and make sure that it's linked with the data. And at the moment, it's not, but it will be very soon. Right, So we need the name, which is, this is the name. Although it says show number, it is actually name in our data. Our title is there, so let's put our show title. Now, with these, instead of selecting them and overwriting them, you know, a row of numbers won't tell me much. So I need to actually add that that is the duration. And in this case, that is the date. So put that there and then put release date in. Right, so good to go then. Apart from, how does it know what graphic to put in there? And that is actually easier than you would imagine. There's the show art. That's where it's coming from. And what I can do is double click that. As soon as I double click it, I get this kind of placeholder effect with the graphic, and that's telling me, yeah, this is wired up. It's ready to go. So what I've done is design an individual page for my output, my catalogue of MacBite shows. But I can tell you that won't look brilliant when it's printed out or when it's merged to a new file, because there's no delineation between the actual shows themselves. Now, how do we do that? Well, that's relatively straightforward. You've got the pen tool. So if I click at the top and take it down and click at the bottom, then I have a line separating them. And if I do the same, so pen tool towards the side over here, so that should snap. I'll take it fractionally outside that. Don't want it to do that though, so come away from there. Right, fractionally outside and over there, like that. Right, will that work? Well, let's have a look at it. Let's have a look at it. So we'll do a preview. These are the lines that I've just drawn. That does actually look okay. But are we going wrong with this? And this is the kind of thing you need to think about at this point to get the best from it. Okay? But we're not getting a preview of the images, which is fine. It's these lines that I'm concerned about. They look okay in here. But if I decide down in the future that I want to change those, what should I do? Well, you do have object styles, but there's another thing to think about, isn't there? Should these lines be placed on here, or should they be placed on the master? It makes no difference if every time you want to make a change, you come back to this file and you regenerate. But if you are the recipient of the file, you would be really thrilled if somebody had taken that away from there and put that up here to enable you with your file. So hang on, let me just undo that, drag that over there. That would enable you or any recipient of the file to be able to edit it from the master. So it doesn't matter if you've got the master file, but it sure matters if you've not got the master file. So I'll leave it on the master. Right, so we're good to go with that merge then. So we've hooked it all up. We will go over here. First thing, of course, we can do, move it that way, is we can preview it. So let's go through the preview. There we go. Now, we can see a problem, which is something we would need to think about, which is this one. I'm a Barbie girl, but it's in a Barbie world, and it's too long. Now, I used art text there, but it may well have been a better bet to use a text block. So there's a thing with that. So we will, now we've done it, we found one problem. I think that's the only problem we're going to find. Although now I can see data in it. I'm not liking the layout. I am thinking up here that needs to move down a bit. It's too squashed. But once we've got that, we just need to concentrate on this bit that we're having a problem with, which is that's not going to work there like that, is it? We need a different type of text. So let's put a text block in there like that. Might even need to make that smaller. Don't know. But what we will do is on our fields, and all I'm doing, I won't drag it on yet again. All I'm going to do is add on the title, show title. There we go. Now that is not big enough. Oh, I do need that a bit bigger than that. So let's see what happens when I get it up to like 18. We do have some long titles, so we should probably leave it at 18, shouldn't we? Like that. But now we've got another problem. Oh dear, it's on the first one, not on the second one. What happened? Cut it and make sure that you've got that selected and then paste. And that is what we'll put it in here. So I'm going to need to do something with this, aren't I? It's still not wrapping. Let me, I'm looking at the preview, so it should certainly be wrapping. I will worry about that later. Not concerned at this point. As long as we've got our data merged, let's get going with it. So does it actually work? Well, you don't need to turn the preview off to do this. I just do turn the preview off. Oh, now it's telling me that I'd linked to that, but now it's out of date. So this is the point that it will remind you, do you know what? You made some changes to this. And I did. If you remember, I went in and I showed you the data and then I saved the file because I changed the paths for the graphics. So it's saying, do you want to update it? And yes, I do, because if I don't, it might not work. Actually, in this circumstance, it would work because I changed it and then I changed it back. Okay, and there is our output. And although this didn't preview well, the Barbie bit, it's absolutely fine in here. If we go right down to the bottom ones, where we've got some long ones, we might need to make a few changes, but even the longer ones are coming through absolutely fine. And if we want to change these, because they are on here, so let's grab all of them, and say we wanted to make a change. So it's a bit thin, we want it to be much thicker, like that. That will then come through here, even if you only have the output file. Okay. Right, I'll do one more demo because it's the cool one. It's the cool one. But the principle is exactly the same. Having said that, in this one, it is actually slightly different. But overall, the principle is the same. Now, one thing to think about with this one is, this is the merge file. This is the output file. So I'm going to undo that and get those back to how they were. Because one thing you're going to need to think about is, right, so I've got this merged file. The merged file came from the master file, this being the master file. Anything that's in here is duplicated, including blank pages, including dedicated pages. So if I wanted this MacBytes catalogue to have a cover, problem. If I put it in here, I'll get one cover per page, which is not what we want. But in the output file, this is where you would add extra pages. So if I wanted to add in here, number of pages, I'm going to go for 2 pages and I'm going to go before page 1. And I don't want master A. I don't really want a master on it. So let's do that. And that gives me 2 pages. It gives me a cover page and a page that I can put the introduction on if I want to. So this starts on a recto page on the right-hand side. And this is where I would put the cover page that I want. Do I have in here MacBytes? Oh, that's good of me, isn't it? Amazing. So what I would do in here is I'm going to just quickly create a cover for it. It's going to be incredibly basic, not playing around with it. Let's do that. So we've got black. Let's drag this on. This is why we have assets. Do you all know how to use the assets? Or would you like a session on assets? Creating, managing, etc. So we'll put a cover on there, MacBytes catalogue. And back to the pages. We've now got our cover page. We've got a page where we can put a welcome. So let's actually go put a welcome on it. We'll have that like that. Come on. Welcome to MacBytes. And we will have that a bit bigger, and we will have that our particular font, which is Myriad Pro. So now the output file now is more like a document, a standard document, which is why styles are so important. If you decide you want to change anything in here, it would have been a great idea to put a style on that in the master file. But styles is a whole different business. Oh, we did say we'd do a session on styles. I do remember that now. Have we ever done one? I don't think we've done a whole thing on styles. Let's think about that. And that is how you then create with this, your output file then becomes a full document. However, what do you do if you then need to update the file? Well, you either take these 2 pages and put them in the new file, or you delete all of these pages and import your new output file into this file. So, but never delete the original file. So always leave this master file alone. So I'll save that and I will call that master catalogue. And put that on the desktop, get rid of that. And then this is the actual catalogue itself. So catalogue. Okay, right, let's get on to the last demo then, which is fractionally, albeit fractionally, different. So I'm going to make a new file. It is going to be A4, but this time it's going to be a landscape. Do I need facing pages? No. Do I need a default master? I'll say yes. I'll leave that alone and say yes and create it. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to work not with the layout tool. So the data merge layout tool, not going to use that this time at all. These need to be individual pages. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work with the table tool instead. So I've got a table. That's obviously not how I want that table to look. How I need that to look is, and I do think I had that there. Yeah, I need a 5 by 5 table. So in here, I'm going to type 5. And in this one over there, I'm going to type 5. Right. Then I need them a certain size. So this layout, I need to be a certain size. That is why in here I have the tables and the table formatting in the same window. So in the same tab group here, I have all the things that I actually need. So in here, this needs to be a certain size. Each cell needs to be 3.5 centimetres. So 35 millimetres and 35 millimetres. But what are you doing? What are you doing to me? Come on. I want the whole thing in here, all of them. Not one, all of them. Right, 35 and 35. Is that a bit big? I'm sure I had them 35 last time. Maybe I did. We'll leave it at that. It'll work. Right, so I'm working with the table, not the layout. So I'm going to put that in place. And then what I'm going to do in here is I need to merge it. I need to merge it with some data. So go get the data. And the data is in here, and it's the bingo cards, our WWDC bingo cards. This will be the layout I will use for this year's MacBytes WWDC bingo cards, but I will need to update the data because some things we've already got and some things we're never going to see, like an update to iWork. We've already got the 2 terabyte iPad, so I will have to change the data. But I've attached to the data, there's only one sheet in there. There are 24 fields and 10 records. I need all 24 fields for each record to appear on a single page, and that's why I'm doing it this way. So we've hooked the data up. We can get going with it. Now in here, I need some of the data. So I'm going to bring my data on, which is in the fields. These are the 24 items, and all I need to do is add each individual item to a cell. Now, why am I not doing this with the data merge tool, the actual data merge layout? Why am I not doing it with that? If you know the answer to that, put it in the chat. This was one of the things. That's not the right one. No, you're number 8 and I need number 7. This was one of the first things that I wanted to merge with it. I was so excited with it. And I got going with the data merge tool and I thought it's not going to work. It won't work. Oh no, this was a big calamity that it wouldn't work. This was what I had waited for the data merge for, this particular task. So let me get these in. Has anybody made a suggestion, Mike? Don't read it out, just say yes or no. Oh, nobody's made a suggestion yet. When they do, let me know. Okay, so 18, 19, and the last row. You might wonder why I've left the middle one free, but if you've seen me before, if you've seen a bingo card, you won't wonder. You will know. Why is that not in? Why, that's better. Don't play with my mind at this stage. Right. And that one's not going in either. There we go. So I've got all of my data in, but I don't particularly want it laid out like that. If I go preview that, no, no, it doesn't look right. Also, it's still broken. It's still broken in the preview because if you look at cell C3, which is the one in the middle, there's data in it. It was blank, if you recall, and I would much rather it was left blank. But never mind, it's there. But so I can see at this stage one of the problems that I've got, which is my data is not laid out correctly. So in here, I would like all of these cells, all of the data in these cells to be in the right place. The first place I'd like it to be is centred vertically, and the second place is centred horizontally. That's a bit of an issue because you do have in here a central line. That works in here. Sometimes, depending on your data, in a table, you might need to fiddle around with it, but that is what I need. I need it centred horizontally and vertically. And in the middle, what I was intending to put in the middle was an Apple logo, which is really simple to do. Your Apple logo.
Andrew said something.
Hang on. Oh, go on then. Tell you what, Mike, read the question out.
It's not a question.
Well, it's a comment. Whatever it is,
you would get all cells containing the same field.
You would. That's exactly what's wrong with it, with the data merge layout tool. And I kicked that around for more time than was necessary. And then I thought I'll just do it without the data merge layout tool. So the data merge layout tool is fantastic for catalogue situations, like cataloguing the MacBytes shows. But for something like this, I want all of the fields from one record on here in a particular layout. So don't think, well, there's this data merge layout tool and I've got to use it. Because in this circumstance, the way I'm going to do it is a much better way of doing it. Okay? Where was I with that? I know I typed this in and it's disappeared. Right, I know what I need to do. In the middle here, I need an Apple logo. And there is an easy way to do that, which is Option, Shift and K on a Mac keyboard, and you get an Apple logo, which is fabulous. I love that. It's too small, but it's just text, so you can put that whatever size you like. So we'll have it like that. Right, this is where the layout thing comes in. Many moons ago when I designed this, I made it black. And then I made it available for everybody and people wanted to print it out and actually play bingo on it. So I think I'll do a white one this year. But this is where you do all of the layout for that. So if you go back to the assets, I can bring on here the MacBytes logo. Just make that black and put it in the right place. It's going to be WWDC. So WWDC 2021. There we go. Make that a bit bigger, I think. I think we could do with getting that a bit bigger. And at the moment it's Arial. I don't particularly want it to be Arial. We would have that be Myriad Pro. So this is all your design layout aspect of it. For the output that I want from this, which is just a PDF, I probably wouldn't be too concerned about making styles and stuff like that. But just to show you in here, you know, if I did want to do that, it's not as simple as grabbing this and turning that into Avenir, which is my favourite font. If I do that, you see what happens to the Apple logo. So, best way to do that, instead of just sticking it on there, is to actually grab what you want in here. So grab these first ones and then do a non-contiguous selection like this. So I'm grabbing all of these and I'm missing the one out in the middle, and I'm doing that with the Command key. Then I can go in and make it Avenir and possibly make it a little bit bigger, I'm not sure, but that doesn't look bad. Right, so we've got that. Last thing I probably want, there is going to be a date on this, isn't it? And that is the 7th of June, don't miss it. Make a note of the date. So WWDC 2021, let's make that about 36, is going to be on the 7th of June, and we will be covering it live, as ever. Other thing that I'm going to want is this for the background, which isn't wide enough there, but it's a vector, so it'll stretch. Probably don't need it that wide either. Let's take it like that and have it along the bottom. But of course it needs to move to the back. So I'm using Command and the square bracket, the left square bracket, to take it all the way to the back there. I would probably change the opacity of that because you can't read everything properly with it, can you? But, you know, 25% is fine. We've got something on there that says that that is MacBytes. And we're good to go. So remember what we've designed. We've designed a single page. But we are at the point, so I'm going to save that as well, a bingo card, because, you know, you've seen it crash once today. I wouldn't put it past it. There's a bingo card. And then all we need to do is merge it. So I'm going to bring it on so you actually see me push the button, generate, and it's going to go away and it's going to create the file. And there it is. In this case, there's 10 of them and it does it virtually instantly. When I did this for real last year, couldn't use Affinity Publisher, did the design in Affinity Publisher and then took the thing into Word, don't ask. And when I came to do that bit that you've just seen, when I came to hit the generate, it took forever. And I mean forever. It must have taken about 25 minutes. I thought it crashed. But no, it hasn't. Certainly not on here, it hasn't. So there we go. There are all the pages. I think this time it'd be a cool idea to number the cards so we know who's got what cards. But as you can see from this, we are going to have to update this. macOS 11 announced. Well, that's been and gone, hasn't it? So I will update the data and I will regenerate that. But I will use this design that you saw me do today for the real cards that will be with you first week in June. So that is how you do something like that. So the data merge layout tool is primarily for cataloguing. If you want something laid out as advanced as that, then you don't really need the data merge layout tool because you're working on an individual page at a time basis. But if you want multiple records on a single page, that's the data merge layout tool. And if you want one record laid out however you want it to be laid out, you don't need it. You can just do it like that. Right, I will go finish off the presentation and then do the Q&A. So, what have we been looking at? And why are you not moving? That's better. Oh, it flashed. There we go. Let's have a quick recap of what we did. So we looked at the data merge tools, of which there's the data merge layout tool, the data merge panel, and the fields panel that you're playing with. Data sources, where your data can come from, which is spreadsheets that can read XLSX format, text files, comma separated, tab separated, and JSON files. Now, JSON files could be generated from other applications, creating data that you want to bring in here. So instead of me having that file, the XLSX file that had all of the map bytes in it, because I could get that out of Notion, I could use it straight from Notion as a JSON file. Then we've got the per page mail merge, which we started with the certificates. The certificate was a fairly basic layout, but the same principle was applied in that last demonstration. It just had a table with it to lay out multiple fields from a single record onto a single page. We looked at the labels, which couldn't be easier. The labels could not be easier. You use the data merge layout tool and then just work out how many labels are on your page. The catalogue style was what we did with the data merge layout tool, where we had multiple MacBytes episodes on a single page. And then, of course, there was the bingo cards that we wrapped up with. This demonstration today has been part of Mad May. It's the start of Mad May, where we're going live every Sunday and it will be available on demand afterwards. So this is the first time you're finding out what we're doing next week. We're sticking with Affinity Publisher and we're looking at working with images, all things images in Affinity Publisher next week. So same time, same place, Sunday, the 9th of May. This one will be available on demand as soon as I press stop. And if you were unaware, we did Mad March as well. And in Mad March, we covered the export persona in Affinity Designer. That was our most requested. We also covered mastering blend modes in Affinity Photo. Now, while this one was the most requested, this one was the most viewed. I was surprised as well, but that was the most viewed. Create creative tables in Affinity Publisher. If you've watched this one and you've not seen that one, there's a couple of demos in there about data merge, but you will have seen them in this one. But if you wanted to catch up, then you could. We also covered mastering master pages in Affinity Publisher. And we wrapped up that Mad March with Adobe Bridge. And all of those, Mike is putting the links in as I speak. Everything that I do is going to be available on demand at youtube.com/ElaineGiles. And don't forget to subscribe, because if you subscribe and you hit the notification bell, YouTube will let you know when we're going live. And that is how you can contact me. and I would love to hear from you. If you've got any suggestions for sessions that you would like to see or questions about it, let me know. We love you guys. If you love us or you found today useful, please give us a like. It really makes a difference with YouTube. And if you want first dibs on everything that I'm doing and a follow-up with, you will get a mail which will have links in it to timestamps for all of the videos, make it easier to go back and rewatch bits you want to rewatch, then that is my newsletter, which is elainegiles.com/VIP. Right, let's head into the Q&A, Mike. I'm pondering this now because I know. No, I'm not going to see it in there, am I? Or am I? Problems. Well, we'll go into the Q&A anyway. So do we have questions?
Lots of them.
Right, lots of them. Away you go. Let's have the first one. While I fiddle with the screen, don't worry about this so I can actually see all of the questions. But start off with the first one, Mike.
Andrea from Sassy Planner says...
Hi, Andrea.
Hi, Andrea. Hoping for calendar automation, maybe. I have various start dates for my weekly, monthly, yearly planners, and it's painstakingly painful typing out every daily date. I don't think it'll be able to be automated into my design, but you never know.
I think it probably could be, but I'd need to know exactly what you're trying to do. Best bet, because I did contemplate including like calendar stuff in here, and I thought, you know what, this is like the basics. So I definitely foresee we could have a session on, just handling calendars and planners. Best thing you could do, Andrea, pop me an email and tell me, give me a little bit more information, a couple of pickies maybe of what you're trying to do, and I will have a ponder as to the fastest way that could be done. So do get in touch with me. Right, I'm going to pop that over there. And that way I can see what's happening. Right, carry on with the questions, Mike.
Tracy asked if Publisher is capable of printing from a particular label. I think you mentioned that earlier, didn't you?
You're right. I did. Okay. It probably is. Right, so let's have a look if we could do that. Let's go back to my desktop and see if we can actually have a look at that. Right, I had some labels ones in here, didn't I? Label. Labels merged. There we go. Right, so if what Tracy's saying is, you want it to print out Maisie there, but you don't want it to print out the others. Now, is that the situation? So let me just move things so I can see this. Oh, Tracy's voting for styles. Yeah, I've just written that down on a post-it note. Oh, thank you, Renee. You've both been fabulous once again. Affinity becomes so much more fun. Affinity is great fun, isn't it? Right, so let's sort Tracy out. If what you want here is a particular label, so Maisie's, is this Dr. Maisie? Dr. Maisie, right? And you only want that label. Now, you might say to me, why would that happen? Why would that happen? Well, that could happen if you are being frugal with your labels, because they are, we're talking kidneys, aren't we, to buy labels. You may have some sheets that you've got left, right? And you've got maybe 3 labels on it. So let's say you have a sheet of labels and those 3 are unprinted and you would like to print those. Then all you need to do with all of the others, so as we go into here, this is the output document to remember. You can select each of the ones that you don't want printed, leaving the 3 that you do in the position that you particularly want them, and just turn them off. You're not deleting them, you're just turning them off. Okay, and that way you can do that. Right, the other way that I talked about was in the data merge, so we don't need that one, we actually need the merge, which wasn't a master catalogue with it. I'm sure I said the merge labels, that'll be the one. Labels, so this is where you set it up. In here you did have the option, so your sources at the top, fold that up. Your first option was in here, where you could choose the labels to be printed. But as I said, the filter, not great. Not great, to be honest. Let's have a look at the other options you've got. Let's leave the filter set to all. The other option you've got in here, in your grid. Now, I thought it was actually listed. And it's not there. Hang on. Let's get the data merge layout tool. There was an option up here. In terms of how you advance. So you could advance and miss out certain things. That would be one option. And no, it looks like that's the only. Oh, the offset. Now, I'm imagining the offset to add to the current record index. This is really helpful, isn't it? How could we write this so no one understands it? Offset to add to the current record index before starting to merge it to the layout. Do you know what that means in English? I've already printed the first 10, so can you offset by 10? But in terms of you being precise as to where it appears, because even if I do that, it's going to start in the top left-hand corner. So if you've already merged it and you've just happened to have a sheet of labels and you've got half the labels available, then I would just turn off the top ones. But that may be not what you meant. So give me a little bit more detail on that. Right, back to the questions, Mike.
So you've answered that one.
I have.
Renee said, does update also update the merge after the merging has been done?
Not after the merging has been done, no. Because you've got two different files. So if we use this one that we've got on the screen as an example, the file we're looking at here is the master file. This is the only file that is attached to the data. You did see that it did prompt me that I can either update it manually, just by clicking there, that's updated, or at the point I try and turn this into an output file, it will say, just a minute, the data's not in sync, you need to update the data. But when you get it into the output file, so my merged file, there's no way to update the data because it's not attached to any data. The master file is attached to the data, the output file is not attached to the data, so you can't update that afterwards. You would need to regenerate the merge, which is what I would have had to have done with the MacBytes one to add those 2 extra shows. If I went in and edited the source data now and added those 2 extra shows, it would not automatically update in the output file. It could not do that because the output file has no concept of where this came from. As far as the output file is concerned, it's a standard Affinity Publisher file and you did it by hand. So no, that does not update that.
Shall I carry on?
Yep.
Does it accept numbers data?
Yes, it does accept numbers data. But it's where it supports an XMLS file. So just like in terms of a CSV file, but yes, it does support numbers.
I have a file with data for 10 certificates. Is there a way to output it to 10 separate PDFs?
Oh, the old 10 separate PDFs manoeuvre. It's going to create one file for the PDF. So what you would need to do is have a way to separate out the PDFs. There's a couple of ways you could do that. So let me go and get... There is a script that will do it. Apple Script will do it. You can create an Apple Script, and that's the free way of doing it. There are a few other ways of doing it. So do we have... let's use this one, because the bingo cards need to be separate. Okay, so I'll save that. Bingo output. Right, I would then output that file, so to a PDF. And I've got all pages as an option, or I can take them out one by one, but who wants to do that? So we'll do the all pages thing. We will output that to the desktop. Desktop's going to look absolutely hideous, isn't it? Oh dear. Right, we have the bingo card output. So there's the bingo card output, and it's opening it up in there. What you can do in here, this is PDF Expert. I can look at the whole range of pages. So let's scoot it back that way, give ourselves some room. And what I could do is actually drag these out. But even that's a bit time consuming, isn't it? Page 5, page 6, etc. But I could do that. So the other way to do it is with an Apple Script, and just run that against it. Drag and drop the file to the Apple Script and you run the Apple Script against it and you're good to go. There are apps that will do that. If you've got Acrobat will do it automatically. Just push a button and it will save them out individually. But you don't want to be paying for Acrobat to do one particular job, do you? Not even a particular job like that. Use the Apple Script, it's far easier. Right, what else have we got?
Peter asked, how big is the finished file? I think he was talking about the certificate file.
The certificate file. Okay, I'll go and find it and we can have a look. Right, which file are we talking here? Let's get that over there. Right, the output file is there on the desktop. Oh gosh, I've got such a mess here now. Right, let's get my desktop shared. There we go. The original certificate file is 7 meg, and the output file is 4.8 meg. So actually smaller than the original, probably because this output file didn't have as many graphics in it. But the size of the output file is actually, if you think about it, going to depend on how many graphics you've got in it, how many masters you've got. So there's another example with the masters. So rather than have a graphic on multiple pages, if you've got it in a master, then it should be smaller. So it will depend on how much you've got in it, but it's not overly huge. You know, it could be much worse, couldn't it? Those are the file sizes. I need to tidy this desktop up, I really do. Right, what else have we got, Mike?
Tracy said the file is going to be significantly smaller using master pages, isn't it?
I would suspect it would be, yes. That's why I suggested master pages. For more, you know, not particularly the size of the file, but it's going to be easier to update. But yes, it will have an impact on the size of it.
Tracy also says, how do you save a data merge AF design as a template to be able to base future data merges on it, thinking of a company letter?
That's an interesting question. You should be able to save it as a standard template. What I'm thinking is, would the data source always be the same? In fact, does it need to be a template? Oh, it would, wouldn't it, for the content of the letter changing? Yeah, you should be able to just save that as a template. Should we have a look and see what it does? Oh, we might break it. I do like things that might break it. So let's try breaking it. Right, let's get Publisher up and see if we break it. Where have you gone? Let's make a new file. So we'll say it's an A4 letter. You know what? It'd be quicker if we didn't do a new file, wouldn't it? It would be quicker if we got the bingo card, because that's something that I might want to duplicate. So at this point, we're looking at saving that, exporting it as a template. I do actually have a place that templates live. Would that it could remember where that was, but luckily I know where it is, because everything is so neat and tidy. Right, there's Kim's birthday card. Right, I create a new folder in there for templates. That's where mine go. This is so they're backed up. I don't leave them on the individual machine. Right, let's save our template there. That currently is hooked up. So what we would then do is go to New, and in our templates, which I have not got hooked up, I will add a folder, which is the template folder, which will wire that up, and there is the bingo card. And then I will create a new one based on that. So this now is untitled, and the data is still merged with it. So don't even need to update it. And it's got the data in it, and that is what it looks like without the preview, and that's what it looks like with the preview. So in exactly the same way as you would do with anything else, Tracy. The only thing to think about with that is making sure that the data source doesn't change, which I don't think it would if it was a mailing list you were sending it to. But you would need to think about updating it as soon as you open the file. It will prompt you at the point you come to create the merge at the end and say if it's not up to date. So if you've added people to the list. But exactly the same way as you would create any other kind of template. What else have we got, Mike?
One last question. When creating address labels, one often needs to skip blank lines. Can this be done in Publisher?
I didn't put them online. Well, I put them online? Yeah, I guess I did put them on lines. I don't know is the answer to that, because I haven't tried it. All of my data worked well, but my suspicion would be it would ignore the blank line. So how we could test that right now... Can you hear Lola chunnering away with her little self? Are you grumpy, girl? Is it dinner time and Daddy's not feeding you? Right, let's try this one, which is our labels. Now that's labels merged. This is labels. So let's say in here we edit the data. So that is one thing we would need to do. So we'll go into Excel. There's Excel. And we will open up our names and addresses data. There. And we'll take away one of the cities or two of the cities. So let's take away a couple of cities there. Take them out. I've just realised actually that's probably not the best idea I've ever had. Let's do that first and then let's delete them. Okay, and we'll save the file. So the structure of the file hasn't been changed, but what has been changed is the actual data itself. So we'll shut that down. Over at this point in here, you would need to update it. So we've updated the data. Generate it and see what happens. No, it's not. I thought it might, but no, it's not. So we'd have to think about how else to get rid of blank lines. One option would be maybe to do something at the data end. But I think with this, we're going to have to remember, like I said, the filtering is absolutely shocking. We're going to have to remember it's very much a version 1, and niceties like that are probably going to come down the line. There's just not that much in the way of options for things like that. So that could have been better, couldn't it? Right, so no is the answer to that one at the moment, Andrew. Right, okay, what have we got in the comments? Mike's put some comments down. Oh, hello, Kay. Kay is new. I have not met Kay before. Hello. Excited for your first live tutorial. Planning a church photo director and excited to start thinking that through. Oh, that sounds like a fabulous project. Oh, so exciting. Graphics are such fun to work with when you're merging them. Right, okay, says this is exciting because I can kludge anything together, but I want to do it the best way. The best way, Kay, is to think holistically about Affinity Publisher. So think in terms of templates, think in terms of styles, think in terms of master pages. Because, you know, when you train it, when you do a session like this, you're doing it in isolation. So when I did the tables, that's not me, by the way, is it? That's Lola that's drinking.
Yes.
When I did tables, I did touch on data merge, but I said, you know, I'm not really going to deep dive this. Then I did master pages. And, you know, for example, you could use master pages in relation to data merge, and you can use everything in relation to tables, and styles comes into it. You know, maybe we should do a session where we pull everything together and do a project. And that way you'll say, oh, styles, yeah, now I get it. Because if you're concentrating on the mail merge aspect, you might be missing something else that will save you a ton of time down the line. So it's a matter of pulling it all together. But good to see you, Kay. Oh, an asset session. Carol says yes. Kay says yes. Peter says yes. Tracy says yes. Okay, I was thinking assets and symbols, because symbols are cool as well. So we'll put that down. There you go. Renee says, thank goodness for the replay. Was it going too quick? I'm very mindful of going fast enough that people don't fall asleep. No reflection on young Jonathan, that. Yes, exactly, Lola. She likes young Jonathan. Oh, Renee says you've been fabulous once again. Oh, thank you, Renee. Very, very kind of you. And Tracy says, brilliant session. Thank you, Tracy. Right, there was one question up there from Brilliant Sigma, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Can we get an Obsidian live session one day? Oh, do you not like Obsidian, Lola? She's just too cute. I wish you could see her face. Oh, I should set up a webcam on Lola, shouldn't I? Never mind me. Let's put the camera on Lola. Right, so an Obsidian live session. Yeah, I guess we could do that. Obsidian is a note-taking session. We did actually talk about it, didn't we? And the reason I was about to do one in After Hours, a session on Obsidian, and then Craft came out, and I thought, you know what, Craft, people are probably going to be more accepting of Craft. Obsidian is, I mean, I have no problem with the graph style note-taking system, backlinks, etc. I use Roam, but I did for about 2 weeks use Obsidian, and it was really great. The only reason that I stopped using it was I realised that Mike was going to have access to the content, and he went as white as a sheet when he saw Obsidian. But yeah, Obsidian is a very, very good application, and we could probably line that up. So leave that with me. It'll go on a post-it note. Right, now I haven't seen the chat because I've been going through the questions. So has anything else come into the chats? Right, let's have a look. Good idea, rebacking up the templates. There's no benefit whatsoever to putting the templates local. You can have multiple template folders for a start, which is so cool. So I have them by brand. I would have a MacBytes templates. I've got YouTube templates. So each one is an individual folder inside that templates folder. But if you just put them in a cloud, and it doesn't really much matter which one, as long as you can get to it from the desktop, then it's as broad as it's long, which service you use. I choose to use Dropbox. The only caveat on that is when I wasn't using Dropbox, when I was using Google Drive as my primary cloud service, I had a bit of an issue when it came to the templates. They worked fabulous on the desktop. They did not work at all on mobile. Now, I know at the moment with Affinity Publisher, we don't have the luxury of an iPad version. But when we do, you might have to be more careful about the cloud you use. It only wanted to access them from iCloud, and I did not want my data in iCloud. But if that's what I had to do to make it work on iPad, then I would. But if it's on the desktop, any cloud service will do. No problem at all. Oh, Kay wants the complete project session. Okay, I'll put that down as well. I'm making sure Mike's making notes here. And add Carol to the complete project list. Okay, will do. And Renee's been in Slack. Oh, didn't mention Slack today, but if you want to join the MacBytes Slack, feel free. macbytes.co.uk/Slack is where we all hang out, particularly in relation to after hours. Right, is there anything else? Anything else? Oh, Tracy's happy. Brilliant. So you just change the data file. Only when you change the data file. So if your data is names, addresses, emails, etc., then you could leave it be unless you do one of two things. You would either update it vertically or you would update it horizontally. And what I mean by that is, if you add a field, that's a vertical update. You're adding an entire column. If you add new records, that's a horizontal update, and you're adding records at the bottom. Either way, it would need updating, but it updates instantly from the data panel window, the data merge panel window. All you need to do is just hit that update button and you're done. So yes, it would. I guess in regard to that, the other thing to think about is where the data is. As long as it's in a specific location and that doesn't change, you're fine. If you decide to move the data, then you would have to open up the template and then edit where it actually is. So attach the data to the file. But if it's a standard thing that you do, I would just find a standard location, preferably in a cloud, and put it there. If you've got like 10 different things that you send attached to one lot of data, then have it in a single place. And the other thing to think about is maybe you want a folder that is your merge data folder because you've got 10 different sources in that folder. But either way, yes, it's very easy to update. It works brilliantly. Hello, Kim. Kim's in. Oh, yes, of course, we're still here. Lola, we've been here that long. Lola's got grumpy. And Mike's had to disappear. And the match is on. So he might be doing the studio trick any time now. Right, I'm heading back up again. Oh, PDF Pen Pro is a bit expensive just to split a PDF though, isn't it, Tracy? It's a powerful application. It's not exactly pretty though. But yeah, that one does do it, as does Acrobat. But the script is just easier. Use the script, it's free and it's easy. Right, I'm going back upwards. Oh, I've got another one voting for styles now. So styles, yes. Hello, is that Cezi? You like styles? No problem, I'll add that to the list. Tracy's looking for other suggestions. Well, I won't be doing a mad June. You heard that here first. No, June we have a holiday planned. And obviously a staycation, not going anywhere, obviously. And also, you know how much Mike enjoys the football. Well, June is the European Championships. Apparently, they're still branding it 2020. But, you know, it should have been last year. It's going to be this year. I checked the fixtures last night because last year we had a calendar. And this year we haven't. So I went to check the fixtures. We are going to have a ball the middle Friday of June because the matches are at 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock. Usually, Mike is working out how he's going to get home for these games. So I had a quick look. 9 o'clock on this Friday in June, the middle Friday in June. Who in the right minds? They did not consult with us first. We have an after hours. It's the England-Scotland match. Oh, that I want to watch it. So we'll be doing both. I suspect we'll be doing an after hours and watching the England-Scotland match. Joking June. No, holidaying June, Renee. It's our extra 2 weeks, isn't it, that we have acquired in the last couple of years?
Yeah.
You can buy extra holidays, so we bought extra holidays. And we usually put a project in. So there'll be something at the end of it for you to play with. But I won't be going live on the Sundays, because that will be three weekends out my holiday. But maybe again in the future. Think about July, maybe. Have a think about July. Right, do we have any more questions before I leave Mike in peace to watch the match?
You won't be doing
that. Last call for questions. Will I not be doing that?
No.
Why?
Because it hasn't started, and it might not start.
I told you that would happen. Do you want to explain? Or do you not have the words?
It's kicked off.
Yeah, he doesn't mean the match.
The players are still in the hotel.
If you're wondering what on earth's going on, there was a match. Was it 4 o'clock?
4:30.
There was supposed to be a 4:30 kick-off at Old Trafford, where Manchester United are playing
Liverpool.
Is it Liverpool? Oh dear. I'm not surprised it's kicked off then. But the United fans are a little bit upset with the owners of the club. So they staged a kind of protest outside the stadium.
And it all got out of hand.
Which would have been fine if it was outside the stadium, but there was 10,000 of them. And it got out of hand. And in the end, they invaded the stadium. COVID rules were not breached because they didn't make it to the players' area. The dressing rooms, changing rooms. But Mike's just said the players haven't actually left the hotel yet. So I don't think this match is going to happen. So sorry about that, Mike. But hey, at least the show today didn't interrupt you.
That's what...
do you know what they'll have to do?
Brilliant Sigma and Peter said that.
Do you know what I was thinking?
Fancy scheduling a session when United were playing.
I know. Well,
it's turned out well, hasn't it?
I obviously had the second sight, didn't I? Do you know what they should do with behaviour like that? They should play that behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Oh, hang on, wait. Yeah, they tried that, didn't they? Oh, well, I shall look forward to seeing all of this. But last call for questions. And Mike, you are making a note of all the chat and all the requests, aren't you? We will divvy these up shortly, because I did have some ideas of my own, but never mind. Jolly July. Oh, Renee, I'm liking that. Jolly July. Excellent. Tracy's going to have to look into just using Apple Script, and then you could bin PDF Pro, use it once a month for a single task. I think, did somebody write that script? You'd have to make it yourself. Let's have a look. Apple Script, split PDF. I'm thinking it's pretty simple to do. I think it's one of the things that it can actually just do. So let's have a look. Can we just download it? Oh, good grief. That's. I thought it was shorter than that. Let's have another one. See if that's any shorter. Are you actually going to open that? Oh, there we go. So how simple is this? How fast could we do it? I'll tell you what I'll do. I will put that in an after hours. Or possibly a future session, because you are going to need to script it, and it's quite long. So not one to be done at this point in a 2-hour, 15-minute session. But I will sort that out with a script that you can just download and use. Okay? Hang on. Now I've lost my chat again. There we go. Right, I've got it back. Awesome August. Oh, might have to leave it. Stupid September. You guys come up with some names, and I'll tell you what, I'll pick one. And that's what we'll do. But not June. June's ring-fenced. Isn't it, Mike? If I put sessions on, somebody would be grumpy. Almost as grumpy as he is that there's no football.
I'm not as grumpy.
Is that what the fans wanted?
No.
Oh. Loving that, Peter. Can I pop down and send the naughty boys home so the match can start? It's not going to start if they're still in the hotel. Do you know, it's their own fault, because if they're at hotel football, they could just whip across the road.
Do you remember when they got delayed because they were at the hotel at the
I
cricket
do.
ground.
When Jose was manager.
And they had to walk up up Warwick Road.
Well, yeah, and he decided they were walking. Do you know, Brian Clough used to do that every week?
I know.
Brian Clough used to be manager of Nottingham Forest, but I think he always did that, didn't he? Did it when he was manager of Leeds. And it was to ground the players, like, were walking to the ground. So he would pull the bus up about half a mile from the ground, and he would have the players walk to the ground and carry their kit. Do you know, that's not a bad idea. I had great respect for him, apart from the fact he thought women had no place in football. And I don't think he meant playing. I think he meant in the crowd. But apart from that, I had great respect for him. At least he did ground the players. Oh, and July is Carol's birthday. Oh, fabulous. When in July? My mum's birthday was the 20th. So when in July is it? Oh, excitement for birthdays. We had a birthday the other day. So we had the birthday jingle going. On and on. Right, so again, last call for questions, and then I'm off. And I'm going to make sure that Lola's not grumpy. Lola's grumpy because she's not getting a walk. But she could actually go out for a walk straight away, couldn't she? Because, match and all that.
No, she's just had a dinner.
Oh, now she's had a dinner, so she was grumpy. She was hungry. That's why she was grumpy. Honestly, Lola. Mind you, when I mentioned young Jonathan, she did get quite animated, didn't she? I think we have a Team Jonathan member here. I really do think we have that. Right, is that updating or not? Okay, I'm going to give it another 30 seconds and then we're off. So literally last call for questions. And if you've got any questions after the session, just ping me and let me know. While I collate all of your suggestions for upcoming sessions. It doesn't look like I saved that one, so we'll do a labels too, because I've no idea what I'm saving here. And let's come out of all of these while I wait for questions. You are very welcome, Renee. Very, very welcome. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some value out of it. Right, well, we will head off then, as promised. If you are with us tonight, we are going live on Marooned at MacBite's headquarters tonight, as ever.
I may or may not be watching the football.
Mike may or may not be watching the football. It's all going to depend. Poor Mike. Couldn't make this stuff up, could you? I did think it was getting pretty bad about 3 o'clock, but then I left Mike to it. Right. Okay, Kim, I shall look forward to you catching up. You let us know if you've got any questions. Johnny has been to the mountaintop. Johnny's always having a whale of a time. We love young Jonathan. Okay, so I'm going to say good afternoon from me.
And good afternoon from me.
We will both see you next time. Stay safe, guys.